Bows in Dragonwilds aren't just weapons, they're versatile tools. You can use them to collect floating rune essence without climbing or building, just shoot and gather up. They're also perfect for hunting, especially deer, letting you strike from a distance with ease. But the more I used bows, the more I realized I didn't fully understand how the damage worked and what really sets one bow apart from another. Let's break it down, starting with the different bow classes. There are two main bow types in Dragonwilds, short bows and long bows. While they share some traits, their differences are really what define them. Short bow is the basic type of bow in Dragonwilds. Their tooltip only shows a damage multiplier and in some cases a special attack. The game uses this damage multiplier together with the arrow's damage to calculate the base damage for a shot. Using left click with a short bow performs a base damage shot. When aiming down and drawing, the damage starts from the base value and gradually ramps up to the maximum damage. This maximum damage is calculated by multiplying the base damage by 1.5, and the final value is then rounded up to the nearest whole number. Short bows reach this maximum damage at 1 second of draw time, thus limiting a single arrow's damage to the cap. For example, the Ash short bow has a damage multiplier of 1.9. When using stone arrows with a base damage of 8, the initial base damage is calculated as 8 times 1.9 equals 15.2, which rounds up to 16. The fully drawn maximum damage shot is then 15.2 times 1.5 equals 22.8, which again rounds up to 23. Longbow is the heavier and slower counterpart to the short bow. Its tooltip displays a flat damage value and a damage multiplier, and in some cases a special attack. Pressing left click with a longbow does not fire an arrow, but instead performs a kick that deals the flat damage shown in the tooltip. When aiming and drawing a shot, the arrow's damage also starts from the base damage and scales gradually over time. At 1 second of draw time, the shot reaches 1.5 times the base damage, matching the short bow's maximum. Drawing for 2 full seconds allows the shot to reach its true maximum, which is calculated by multiplying the base damage by 2.25, then rounding the result up to the next whole number. As an example, Adventurer's longbow has a damage multiplier of 1.9. A 1 second draw is then calculated by multiplying 15.2 with 1.5 equals 22.8, rounded up to 23. A full 2 second draw is then calculated by multiplying 15.2 by 2.25 equals 34.2, which rounds up to 35. In addition to increased damage, the arrow's range also increases with draw time, meaning longbows can hit targets further away when fully drawn. This makes longbows capable of significantly higher damage and longer reach, but at the cost of time and stamina. To better illustrate how damage builds up over time with each bow, here's a simple graph comparing short bow and long bow damage scaling across draw time. On the x-axis we have draw time in seconds from 0 to 2. On the y-axis is the damage multiplier applied on top of the base damage. The short bow shown with a solid line ramps up quickly and reaches its maximum multiplier of 1.5 at exactly 1 second. After that, the damage stays flat, meaning that there's no benefit to drawing longer. The longbow, represented with a dashed line, starts the same as short bow. At 1 second it reaches the same 1.5 multiplier, but unlike the short bow, it keeps increasing and reaches a full multiplier of 2.25 at 2 seconds. Now let's talk about weak spots. Many enemies have one, usually the head. If you hit it, your damage is multiplied by 1.25, indicated by yellow damage text. Wearing any 3-piece range armor set grants an additional 25% increase to weak spot damage, effectively adding another 1.25 multiplier. That means a weak spot hit with full gear deals 1.25 times 1.25 equals 1.5625 times the original damage, a boost of over 56%. This makes a high damage modifier incredibly rewarding, especially when landing well-placed longbow shots. Early bows have a lower modifier, around 1.9, but as you unlock better bows, the multiplier increases significantly. This means the higher damage arrows become much more important as your bow improves. If you're using a high-end bow with cheap arrows, you're wasting a lot of potential. Let's not forget stamina. Every action you take with a bow consumes it, and the cost varies between bow types. For short bows, a quick shot costs 17 stamina, while an aimed shot only uses 10. For long bows, the kick attack costs 15 stamina, and a fully aimed shot takes 30. There are only two ways to reduce stamina usage. The 2-piece range armor set bonus, which reduces stamina cost by 33%, and the ferocious infusion buff, which reduces it by 40%. These reductions stack multiplicatively, so the calculated cost becomes just 40.2 of the original. Based on that, a longbow's aim shot should cost around 12 stamina, and a shortbow's quick shot around 6.8. However, in practice, in-game testing shows consistently lower stamina use than those calculations suggest. For example, fully charged longbow shots tend to use about 10 stamina, not 12. Shortbow quick shots typically use around 5, not almost 7. Aim shots with the shortbow use about 3, and the longbow's kick lands near 5. The exact way stamina is calculated internally isn't entirely clear, but one thing is, the combination of armor bonus and ferocious infusion provides a significant real-world reduction in stamina usage, more than the math alone would suggest. This means that longbow's high stamina cost becomes far more manageable when both bonuses are active. Still, because shortbows already consume so little stamina, they remain the more flexible and evasive option, especially in solo play where you need to constantly dodge and reposition without burning through your stamina bar. Before we get into raw damage numbers, let's quickly cover special effects and arrow choices. While some bows in Dragonwilds mention special bonuses in their tooltips, most of them currently don't work at all. For example, Wild Scout Shortbow claims to have increased draw speed, and Hunter Stack Bow says it reduces draw time by 10%. I tested both of these and neither effect made any measurable difference in draw time or damage. That means the only bow that currently has a real working special attack is the Crystal Bow. Here's how it works. The special ability Scatter Shot has a base cost of 30 stamina. It fires a cone of crystals at medium range, dealing 35 damage to every target hit without consuming any arrows. Each hit applies crystal needles, which explode after a short delay for an additional 50 damage. You can stack multiple needle sets if you attack before the first ones explode. Also, unlike normal arrows, Scatter Shot can hit targets through solid objects. As for arrows themselves, here's a quick summary of their damage values. Arrow choice matters a lot more once your bow's damage multiplier gets higher. As I previously said, weak arrows will bottleneck your damage potential even with a powerful bow. So when advancing through the game, you should always use the highest damage arrows available. Also, to avoid spoilers, I won't reveal how to obtain these bows. If you're curious, everything's listed on the Dragonwilds wiki, which I've linked down in the video description. Now that we have covered bows, arrows and special effects, let's put it all together and answer the big question. What's the highest possible damage you can do with a bow in Dragonwilds? We'll use iron arrows for this example since they currently have the highest damage at 17. The best short bow in the game is the Blightwood shortbow with the damage multiplier of 4.1. The strongest longbow is the Hunter Stack Bow with a multiplier of 4.3. Let's start with the shortbow. With the Blightwood shortbow, the base damage ends up being 69.7. A fully drawn shot then gives us 105. If we hit a weak spot while wearing 3-piece range armor, that becomes 164 damage. And if the target is a deer, which for some reason take 25% more damage from range attacks, we reach a final maximum of 205 damage. Now for the longbow. With the Hunter Stack Bow, the base damage ends up being 73.1. A fully drawn shot gives us 165, so without a weak spot this is the maximum we can do. If the enemy has a weak spot and we're using 3-piece range armor set, the damage increases to 258. And with the same range damage bonus against deer, the final maximum becomes 323 damage. So under ideal conditions, shortbow maxes out at 205 and longbow can hit for up to 323 damage. The longbow clearly wins in raw damage, but achieving that number requires a perfect storm. Full draw, weak spot, armor bonus and a range vulnerable enemy like a deer. In real combat the shortbow remains more agile, consistent and easier to use, especially when dodging and repositioning are critical. That should be it for ranged weapons. I probably forgot to include something I meant to, but hey, that's how it goes. If you have any questions about the topic, feel free to drop them in the comments. I hope this video helped give you a clearer picture of how bows actually work in Dragonwilds. Thanks for watching.